good. We are live.
Hi guys. In case you haven't noticed, we're at the pool. Literally dripping wet, but seize the moment. Little man is right here, all covered up, cool as a cucumber, sleeping. So we figured we would take this moment. This is one of my favorite stories for you to tell because I think it's a very pinnacle. Is that the right word I'm looking for?
It was a turning point
That's what I was looking for.
in my life, no doubt. And it's one that I had the opportunity to tell a couple times recently to a number of people. I told it to a criminal justice group of criminal justice students. Let me hold that.
Ask them if they can hear us over the wind.
Can you guys hear us all right? Just checking to make sure you can hear. As long as everyone hears us. Yep. Okay. So 9/11/2001, I woke up cold, naked, alone in the SHU of a level 6 prison. You know, getting sent to a federal United States penitentiary, you would think like there's no place further you could possibly fall. Well, when you find yourself in the SHU, stripped of all your belongings, literally all my clothes, I had nothing when I woke up that morning. And honestly, that was my own fault. I was still living way out of control in prison. You know, honestly, like I didn't have a whole lot of hope at that time. I was struggling to kind of figure out what I was gonna do and who I was gonna become. And it was waking up that morning, hungover in this cell, all by myself, and I hear a bunch of commotion out in the hallways. I hear the keys back and forth, the things that you hear in prison, and I'm the last cell in this seg unit. So I hear all these guys, and I wind up getting up in the vent and yelling to the guys next door. They'd been in a riot a few weeks earlier, and so I knew them. And I'm yelling through the vent. I'm like, hey, what's going on over there? And they're like, oh, bunch of planes, World Trade Center. I think they're talking about a book, because the reality is, like, my mind can't even grasp that planes have flown into the World Trade Center. Like, it's just trying to comprehend that. It was just incomprehensible. So I'm thinking they're talking about sending me over a book. I'm like, yeah, send it over. Throughout the next hour or so, I keep hearing the keys, and there's never that much commotion back there. And I'm hearing voices of guys that I know coming back, and it's a lot of different high-profile guys. I mean, basically everybody on that yard was high-profile in some regard. And eventually one of the guys all the way down the other end is yelling down to me, and I finally, like, it dawns on me what he's saying, and he's explaining to me that these planes have hit the building. And in that moment, like, it occurred to me, it's like, man, I am completely cut off from the world. I have no contact with the outside. My family doesn't know where I am. Honestly, I wasn't on good terms with most people at that time. So, like, I was concerned. It was like, it felt like the end of the world, honestly. And here I am sitting in this prison cell, and I can't reach out, and I can't talk to anyone. And I had to sit back there for another month and a half. I don't even remember. It was a while, maybe another 2 months before I finally get back out onto the compound. But it was while I was back there, you know, and I had that time alone in the cell, I realized a couple of things. One, surprisingly, that I was actually pretty patriotic. Like, I felt some kind of way about that, like, and I can't really explain it because I'd never felt that before. I felt a sense of national pride. Like, man, like, this is, you know, this happened to America. Oddly enough, because, you know, of what I thought of the government at that time. So it was kind of a strange contradiction with all that, right? So I was struggling with that, but at the same time, I came to the second realization, which was I had to do things differently. Like, you know, facing 213 years, I was at the beginning of my sentence, and if I was ever gonna have a chance at getting out, you know, having a life again outside of prison, like I needed to start turning things around. And if I'm being honest about it, although I made that decision that day on 9/11, it took me a number of years after that, because honestly I didn't get clean. Like, I didn't get sober, stop smoking, you know, really X those things out of my life and cut off the last of the toxic relationships in my life until almost like the end of 2004, 2005. So it took me a few years after that. But that was one of those turning points. It really, it forced me to stop and, you know, take an inventory of my life, of myself, who I was, where I was. And I figured even if I was in prison, like, there was still a lot that I could do to mend the relationships that I had, you know, just severely damaged. You know, family members, friends. I knew I had a lot of work to do, and I started doing that. But man, it didn't just flip a switch and change everything overnight.
You know, I've heard you tell this story countless times. I can't even think of how many times, but every time you tell it, a different part of it hits me a little bit differently. And today you said that it was just, you felt so disconnected. Now, I was about 12 miles outside of New York City during this, and I don't know how it was for the rest of the country, but there was a point where phone lines, this was way back in the early 2000s, so phones weren't like they are now. The lines would get jammed up and you couldn't get through cell towers. There just weren't nearly as many cell towers at this point. So they were jammed up for, like, let's say a half an hour. And me personally had friends, relatives, husbands of coworkers who worked in the World Trade Center. I was a suburb of New York City at the time, and not being able to get in touch with them for that short period of time, which seemed like an eternity in the moment, but in comparison to you, that was completely disconnected from anybody in your life. You can't check if they're okay. Just nothing. You just have to sit there with your thoughts. And that always stood out to me while you were inside, no matter what the situation, was that you get to sit there, and I always felt like your mind went to the worst case scenario with all of that anxiety. And it was so heart-wrenching to know that you were struggling. You couldn't get in contact with the people you needed to or wanted to make sure they were okay. I knew I was okay. Your family knew they were okay, but we couldn't get that message to you. And that, for me, it was hard to go through, but I can't even imagine being in those shoes and the anxiety and what it must have felt like in the moment. And I think I read one comment and it said that was a pivotal moment in your life, and I don't know if they were giving me the word because I said pinnacle. Duh, that was the word I was looking for. Or if that was a question, like, why was that pivotal moment in your life? And maybe just in case that was a question, maybe you can touch on that.
Why was it pivotal? It was just that, it was that stark realization. You know, people talk about hitting rock bottom. For me, that was one of those points where, like, I had no choice but I literally was stripped bare, disconnected from everyone and everything. And, you know, it was just me. It was me and my thoughts, and forced to contemplate, you know, what I was going to do, with the rest of my life. And I'm grateful that that moment inspired me.
Okay.
And some of what I saw, you know, after the fact, those acts of heroism from all of those first responders, and, you know, so many other people who weren't even first responders. When I finally got a chance to, you know, learn about what had happened, like, I was inspired by that, and I was inspired by those people. I think that too, you know, after the fact, really caused me to you know, just evaluate what I had done with my life up to that point, and and what I was gonna do going forward. Like, what contribution was I gonna make? So, oh, he just wanted to make a guest appearance.
Always. Always.
He's the real star of the show, always. And, you know, without that day, you know, it impacted everyone in this country in different ways. And, you know, if it wouldn't have hit me the way that it did, I wouldn't be here today.
He wouldn't be here today.
He wouldn't be here today either.
So he's getting upset. Is there anything else? Ooh,
And
he wants to eat. Is there anything else you want to say?
no. Oh. And that's what it's all about these days. You know, us being able to be here for him. Incredibly grateful for that, and incredibly grateful for you guys for supporting us. If you have any other questions, please drop them in the comments. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you again soon.